Outlaw Law is brought to you by Whitaker and Hamer, attorneys and counselors at law. Your law firm for life.
Welcome back into the Outlaw Lawyers. Josh Whitaker and Joe Hamer, Whitaker and Hamer Law Firm. They're the managing partners there. Offices in Raleigh, Garner, Clayton, Goldsboro, Fuquay, Varina, and Gastonia. And again, the fellas, practicing attorneys here in the great state of North Carolina. If you've got a legal question of your own, you can get an answer. Here's a number for you, 800-659-1186. That's 800-659-1186. Leave your name, contact information, briefly what the call's about, and an attorney with Whitaker and Hamer will be in touch. You can always email your questions to the show, and we'll answer them on the air on future programs. Questions at theoutlawlawyer.com. What's up next, fellas?
Well, Morgan, the next question I have we get this question in a lot of different ways. That's what I wanted to say. It comes up in different ways. The paraphrased version of the question I'm going to use for today is basically, what is the difference between a healthcare power of attorney and a power of attorney? And the answer is there in the name, but this still causes a lot of confusion for folks. Joe, what's the difference?
The answer is right there in the name, Josh. That's a very simplified way to put it. But there's a few key differences, and there's a few different ways that these two things operate. And the way that I encourage you to look at it, just for the purpose of simplifying what could be a more complex answer, is you've got the healthcare power of attorney, and you've got what we would call just more of a general power of attorney. And that general power of attorney is going to be used more for day-to-day type of activities, cutting checks, making decisions, things that aren't, it's tough to just use, like you said, the exact wording of the two types of POAs, but things that aren't healthcare related decisions. These are more just general day-to-day type of operations and decisions, whether they involve money or assets or whatever they may be, conducting your day-to-day business. That's what that general power of attorney is going to apply to. The healthcare power of attorney, just like the name implies, is going to be more specific to healthcare related matters. It's going to apply where it's a concern of an individual's health. And generally speaking, that's going to be something that's going to take effect in the event of an individual's incapacity. When that person is incapacitated and can't make those decisions themselves, that is when that healthcare power of attorney is going to become extremely valuable. Because if you've got a situation where, something happens to you, you aren't in your right mind, you can't communicate what you want to happen with yourself, you could have a person that's got a general power of attorney. And if that general power of attorney doesn't specifically address the healthcare related matters that are at issue, you're going to be out of luck. And that power of attorney is going to be essentially worthless for that purpose.
Yeah, two very different documents. They're both given life by different statutes in the North Carolina general statutes. And so, like you said, the healthcare power of attorney is something everybody should have. It's become real popular over the past decade or so, especially with kids who turn 18 and are going off to college and still probably rely on their parents for help and maybe calling the doctor and doing whatever needs to be done medically, get medical records, things like that. And so most everybody who's an adult should have a healthcare power of attorney. It's a very easy form. It's not overly complicated. It speaks to maybe some forms of life-ending treatment you may or may not want. But basically, you're appointing someone for your doctor to ask questions to. If you're unconscious, you've been in an accident, or you're not of sound mind and you can't make your own medical or healthcare decisions, the doctor needs that in his file so he can ask. I would argue even a spouse, or if you want a child, or if you want multiple people. I usually don't recommend that in my consults, but anyway, that's who your treating physician is going to look to in a medical emergency where you can't make your own medical decision. So it's handy to have. And then, Joe, like you said, the general power of attorney is more complex. That's one that obviously you can give somebody, a child, a friend, a family member, a professional, your CPA or your attorney or whoever. You can make someone your attorney. In fact, they can act on your behalf to take care of daily business, a specific piece of real property. It can be drafted as general, deal with everything, or as as a singular is, again, just dealing with, I'm going to be out of the country. I need you to take care of selling, 123 Fake Street. 123 Fake Street, you know where that came from?
No, Josh.
I'm going
where
to
did
guess
that
a
come
Simpson
from?
episode.
It did come from the Simpsons. They if you go back, there's an episode where Bart, I don't remember, this was the B plot. I don't remember what the A plot was. But Bart is strolling through like a courthouse and they're having an auction and no one's bidding, so he bids $1. And it's this old warehouse that's falling down. And it's 123 Fake Street. But anyway, they could take care of just this. Bart could appoint, and I think he does pretty much. I think he puts Milhouse in charge, and Milhouse ends up wrecking the factory. It all falls down. It's very comical.
So in this situation, Milhouse is the attorney in fact for Bart, legally speaking.
That's right. Yeah, I had that. I had a law. I'm not going to say his name. I'm not going to put him out there, but I had a law professor. Law professors, this is what we do in law school. They give us fact patterns, and we take case law and statutes, and we try to analyze these fact patterns. And sometimes they're fact patterns from cases, right? Really famous cases. And sometimes they make up names, and then sometimes you have the law professor who just takes cartoon characters and just puts those in your very serious legal fact patterns you're trying to analyze. And I have a feeling if I was a law professor, that's probably the way I'd go. To be a lot of Simpsons characters' names in our fact patterns. But anywho, power of attorney is very serious. Powers of attorney, very serious. Lots of trust there, right? Because if you're giving someone the power to do something on your behalf, they can do it, and people can rely on it, and they're protected. It creates a fiduciary relationship, so that person has very strict legal duties to do what's best for you. Power of attorneys can take effect immediately, right? So as soon as you sign it, it can be set up to be effective. And that person can go do whatever you've authorized them to do on your behalf. Or it can take effect later. So you can go ahead and sign it, but in the body of the document, we can say, hey, this won't take effect until a doctor decides I'm not competent to handle my own affairs, right? So you can have one that won't spring into existence until a doctor says, hey, Josh is done, right? Josh can't make his decisions anymore. This person is going to be their POA. And so when you're doing the estate plan, that's the hardest part for some people, right? When I'm doing an estate plan with folks, one of the hardest things for them to do is figure out, okay, who's going to be the guardian of my minor children if something happens to both me and my spouse, right? That's one of the hardest questions people have, is deciding on who that should be. The second hardest thing is deciding who should act as my attorney. In fact, it's usually going to be a spouse, and then if something happens to that spouse, you got to name a number two, and so that's hard for folks. It's hard to, especially as people get older, it's very hard for them to turn over that kind of decision making to someone else. No matter how much trust is there, it's just it's not always easy.
It's tough, man, and like you said, a lot of trust is required. And that's why I think we as attorneys, we would encourage, very careful drafting of these documents and making sure that you're specifying, each and everything you want these individuals to be able to handle. Because, you mentioned the fact that a general power of attorney is a very complex document. That can be true. And I think a well-drafted general power of attorney is something that's very complex. But you've also got what's called a statutory short form general POA, which is just literally, it's defined by statute. It just lists out the things and you go in and you initial beside it. So they can always, they can be fairly straightforward as well. And you can just give blanket authority to somebody to do pretty much anything as far as that POA goes. And I think I would encourage, and we would encourage our clients to carefully consider exactly what authority they're giving out. And again, that trust piece is essential. So have people you trust.
It does make a difference. And we've been at this for a while now. So I have seen people abuse these, right? So I've seen the people who appoint their kids or, someone attorney in fact, and, that attorney in fact tries to make self-give gifts, make deals that benefit them more than the person they're acting for, basically violating these fiduciary duties that exist. And so that definitely happens. And so it does necessitate some thought. And usually people have that one person, right? People like, hey, if something happens to me, I want Josh to make those decisions. He'll do what is in my best interest. And they feel real good about that. And then we start talking about, well, do you want to name a backup? Do you want to name, if Josh passes away, do you want to have someone else there? And they're like, that's usually tough, But anyway, lots to think about. Very important documents, very central pieces to any estate plan, but take some thought.
Question and answer continue with the Outlaw Lawyers, Josh Whitaker and Joe Hamer. Stay tuned. You can find them at Whitaker and Hamer Law Firm. If you're going through a legal situation and you've got questions, we've got a phone number for you, 800-659-1186. That's 800-659-1186. Leave your contact information, briefly what the call's about, and an attorney with Whitaker and Hamer will be in touch. You can always email your questions to the show, and we'll use them in upcoming programs. Questions at theoutlawlawyer.com. We're back with more questions and answers right after this.